What's going on, y'all? We're going to talk about Schlage F Series today. And a lot of people are familiar with the Schlage brand residential locks, the F Series style locks. They have gone through design changes over the years, and we're going to talk about the design changes that they went through. And a lot of people are familiar with the two styles of Schlage, the new or the current style of Schlage with the compressible cylinder, and familiar with the older style from which it derived. However, there is a third F Series lock that was made for a short while, and it actually had some very unique characteristics. So let's get started with Schlage F Series locks through the generations. Schlage F Series, the three generations. What I have out here is basically the three gens of F Series. A lot of people only are familiar with the two generations, but there was an original F Series, and it followed in the footsteps or the pattern of an actual A Series lock. I'm going to quickly go over the current and the older style F Series locks. While there have been a lot of tweaks and changes over the years, between each generation, especially these two. I don't know about the old one. I think that was a one-off type situation that they quickly stopped making. However, many people are familiar with the current generation of Schlage F-Series locks, and there are actually kind of two generations of the new F-Series. The new F-Series has the compressible cylinder. I'm going to take all the cylinders out. We're going to look at them. However, the biggest functional difference for homeowners is with the newest generation, or the current generation, and the newest, I guess, iteration of the locks, or the current version of them. The biggest difference for homeowners is when you turn the inside knob, it's locked, and then when you turn it this way, it's unlocked. However, now when you turn the inside knob, you watch the interior button there, it turns with the knob, so that unlocks the outside knob. Forever, we had called hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of calls for lockouts for the old F Series, because when you locked it, it was unlocked, locked, but when you turn the knob, it did not unlock the outside. Many customers have locked themselves out inadvertently because of that. When the compressible cylinder locks came out, they too were the same as the old style, where you could just walk out and accidentally lock yourself out. Just recently, in the past few years or so, have they changed it so that it unlocks it automatically. So that is very good for the homeowner, very bad for an on-call locksmith. Let's go ahead and talk about the functional differences. All of them have an interior spring on the interior knob. And that's how it has been basically forever. In the older style, it did not have spring. It was just free floating. There was no spring. It all relied on the return spring for the latch and the inner return spring. At some point when they did this, they were like, we need to add the spring on the inside of the outer knob as well, and they did so. So you've got a dual spring, tri-spring, including the return spring in the latch. So that helps. If one or the other breaks, you will still have a somewhat functioning lock. Let's look at the cylinders before I talk about the main point of the video, but we'll go ahead and quickly take a couple of these apart. Come back up here. And of course, you have to turn the key. The newest cylinder, you can tell the difference between the new and the old because there's only one access hole to get the retainer off. So you turn your key either way, doesn't matter right or left. It can be locked when you do this, as long as the key is turned. That's on any of them. And you push it in, pop it off, and we can see it's a one-piece knob. You pull your key out, and you kind of have to push and guide at the same time to get your core out because of this spring-loaded cap right there. So it does have to push down. They've made them so that it's easier to get out, but when they first came out with these, you definitely always had to reach in with a flat piece of metal like a pick and push that spring cap down to help ease it out. And we can see, if you, I've never seen one of these, this one's called, I guess, the floating cap. There are 3 part numbers that you will need to have if you're a working locksmith to service these. I'll go ahead and post those up here so that you'll have them, because the top pins, the springs, and this cap are all unique to this F Series lock. You cannot use standard top pins, you cannot use standard springs, and if your top gets twisted, speaking of top, when these came out, all locksmiths were like, oh my God, that's going to be such a nightmare. We're going to have to service. We're going to have those. And in fact, Schlage sent out, and I still have, I was still using, I'm almost out of them. The 3 replacement parts, they sent that out if you took a survey. And I'm sure that survey was probably bad for their PR department to have to sift through. But surprisingly, it has not been bad. I have not had really that many calls where the cap just comes off on its own. I do have those calls, but not in the number that I was guessing it would be. So if we move to the generation before that, this uses a fixed latch. They did have this exact latch. The latch has not changed at all. Maybe they changed some of the materials of the springs. I don't know about that. But you can see this is a fixed 2 3/8 latch compared to an adjustable. These adjustable latches, you do not have to slide a deal or slide it out. It automatically would go. You just use one hole for 2 3/8 or the other hole for 2 3/4. So these were good latches. You didn't have to, you didn't have to fiddle around with flipping it out. It was pretty intuitive. I'm not saying they're good latches. They were problematic. A lot of them, when you go to close the door, it would hit and not return spring in. Lubrication will usually help that though. But if we look at the fixed, it's the same thing, just got a plastic guide, and it is fixed for 2 3/8 as we see on the side there. I'm going to go ahead and pull the cylinder out for the older F Series and just look at it. So you can use the compressible cylinder, the new cylinders, in old F Series locks, but you cannot use old F Series cylinders. We see it's a 2-part cap, or a 2-part outer knob. Pull the, and you just drop the cylinder out. And we can see the cylinders are exactly the same. There are no functional difference in the cylinders besides the cap. They said they did this cap thing to make the knobs uniform, but that never made sense to me at all. Not sure about that. But there's no functional differences besides, the height of the cap. You can take this compressible cylinder, drop it in an old F Series, cap it, and put it in, and it will function just fine once you put it in correctly. We can go ahead and do that real quick just to show it will work fine. And the obvious thing is you could not use the locked, unlocked. So you can use the new cylinders in the old locks. They're backwards compatible, but not forward compatible. But you cannot use the old cylinders in the new locks because obviously there's no way to get that cylinder in that lock. So that's just one of those things. And now we're going to move to the point of the video. The old F Series. Let's take a look at close at this. This is the oldest, or the original from what I know, F Series lock. And it functions the same way. There's a hole on each side. It looks very much like a A-Series lock on the outside because it literally is a A-Series lock converted into a tubular or F-Series frame. Lock and unlock, again, you would turn that and it frees it up. Or it won't unlock it, so lockouts were common as well. But if we take it off, we can see it is very weird compared to the regular F Series. It looks like a quickset latch. It's not the same at all. It will not, one will not work for the other. But this is the tubular lock. The springs that are in these, there is a spring on the inside and outside knob. These are non-serviceable, as all of them are. Not made to really take apart. One of the bad things about these, aside from this real sketchy part right here, was these springs were very, very weak. And I've got a lot of these that have a broken spring. A lot of them are returned back in the day for broken springs. Before my day, but they were returned. I've talked to several people who worked on them back in the day. And but functionally, once we take it apart, it appears similar to the other ones. But once we get down to the real difference in it, we can pop this off, and it's two-piece, just like the other ones are. But when we drop the cylinder, we see it is a series style cylinder. It is a cylindrical lock cylinder with the tailpiece that sticks off, that intersects with the mechanism in here. Now I'm going to compare this to this A51 PD right here. There has been some discussion online about not believing that the 51 PD was used with A series locks, but I can guarantee you that it was. There's A53 PD now. The difference between the A53 and the A51 PD is the knob, I believe. These used a 5-pin knob. These all have 6-pin. It's standard now for 6-pin, so that you can use aftermarket cylinders in all A53 PDs. But these A51 PD, Geo 616 finish, also a discontinued finish. If we pull it off and compare it to the F51 PD, we can see it is identical up till there. And that's where it changes into the cylindrical style A-series lock. And if we take out the cylinder, we can see it is the exact same cylinder as well. However, uses a longer tailpiece and different cap. But as far as it being the exact same cylinder, it is indeed the same as that. Once you pull out a A53 PD, I'm going to do some more A videos in the future, and we'll talk about the A53, but it has a 6-pin cylinder. You cannot take the standard cylinder like a GMS or LSDA. You can't use them in these A51 PDs because it sticks out too far. It won't let you, they don't work. You can't use a 6-pin cylinder in a 5-pin lock. But that is pretty much, a conglomerate, I guess. Back then, they were like, well, let's take this from this, cut down production. We can make cylinders the same for our F series as our A series, and we'd cut out a lot of production on those. It did not last long. Not many of those out there. There were some unusual designs. We have quite a few of them, but they're not really going to ever go in somebody's house unless I find somebody that has a broken one of these and it's a historic house that's worth matching it. But I'm going to go ahead and take all the cylinders apart real quick. Just quickly talk about, okay, this one goes with this guy. First, F series cylinders, another quick topic. The lever handles in F series, they do have a different cylinder as well. We can compare it. Now, of course, they're spring cap style, but if we look at the end of it there, we can see it is a different format as well. Same function, same theory, but because it sits in the keyhole sideways, they are like that instead of that. So you cannot use this in a lever, you cannot use a lever in a knob because of that difference. Also, because it's much longer and it will not work. And lastly, the orbit function. The orbit, they came along with this orbit. It's a fat knob, and they realized, I guess, when they were making these, that, hey, that cylinder from all these other things aren't going to work. We have to come up with a new cylinder for just orbit knobs. There may have been one other design, but orbit's the main one. If we drop it out, we can see it is wildly different compared to the regular knob. Much longer, so that it will reach down and do what it's supposed to do. So that kind of covers, I believe, most stuff about the F series just in general. But we'll go ahead and take these apart just real quick. Look at the differences and talk about why they are chamfering locks nowadays. And we will see once we get over here to the newest F Series. Let's take this clip off. Yeah, when I'm taking this clip off on these, I always smush down so that it doesn't get crimped or bent or anything. So if we find our plug follower, let's go ahead and follow these guys out. We'll look at the difference in the plugs. Zoom in there. Look at the chamfer now. All locks nowadays, US market, have heavily chamfered plugs. That is, I believe, in my opinion, that is because just bad key makers. Big box stores cutting keys not accurately and causing problems in the lock. I'm sure lock makers have heard millions of times, my key's not working in my lock, come to find out because it's just a bad key. If we go back on the older F Series, there were no chamfers. So this was back in the day when a well-made key was more respected per se. And then we'll get to what is this A Series style cylinder in the F Series lock. And it is just like any other A Series lock, or any other for that matter, cylindrical type lock cylinder, except it's 5-pin only. And good, sharp, crisp, clean, solid brass. These are not solid brass. No chamfering. Nickel silver pins were in these bad boys. They were actually the best thing about the old F Series was the cylinders. I mean, pick resistance, which of course we all know about that, but you know, that was really the best thing. The cylinders would way outlive the rest of the lock. So that is it. Y'all stay tuned for, I'm about to go investigate some A53 PD stuff over here. I don't think I forgot anything. If I did, somebody just let me know in the comments. And as always, if you have any questions about Schlage F Series or A Series or anything Schlage, pretty well versed, have worked with most Schlage stuff and kind of familiar with it. Just a nice plug. If you have one of these old F Series, we have hundreds of these latches. If you need a latch, let me know. We can sell them to you really cheap. But otherwise, if you have any questions or comments on anything Schlage related, as always, leave them in the comments section. We'll catch y'all next video. Thanks for watching.